Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy here for the Daily Blob, where I shake my brain nipples every day to get some of that dirty YouTube money so I can afford to provide you folks in-person hands-on technology education in Durham, North Carolina. We have a class coming up on AI and web scraping next week, completely full. Don't sign up for it. We have a class coming up on extending AI capabilities with REST APIs in another couple of weeks. Take a look at silicondojo.com if you're interested. Do remember, free to end user is not actually free. That's why I shake the brain nips every day. If you want to throw some money to help support the project, there's a donor box link down below. And with that, let's talk about how the AI bubble is continuing to screw everybody. Not only is the AI bubble probably going to drop us into a goddamn economic depression, but on the way to that economic depression, it's gonna screw us all along the way as they're doing their thing. So the latest thing, and this is kind of curious, is SanDisk. So I like SanDisk products. Basically, if you're looking for storage, a nice, reasonably priced, SSDs, whatever, they are jacking up their prices by 50%. SanDisk reportedly jacks up flash prices by 50% as memory makers cash in on AI-fueled demand. Right? So when you hear about Sam Altman wanting to spend $1.4 trillion on CapEx expenses, when you hear about the new XAI data center, when you hear about a lot of these things, most of the time you're thinking about GPUs. You're thinking about NVIDIA, you're thinking about GPUs, you might be thinking about TPUs or ASICs processors, those types of things. You're probably not thinking about server cases, or CPUs, or RAM, or platter-based hard drives. But here's the thing, right? In order to make that GPU, in order to make that $40,000 GPU do what that $40,000 GPU does, you need a computer around it. You need motherboards and processors and RAM and the whole nine yards. And so with these just insane CapEx purchases that these AI companies are doing, basically that is putting a bottleneck on the system for computer hardware for absolutely everybody, right? We are in a capitalist system. Price is all about supply and demand. If you have companies that essentially have limitless bank accounts and they will buy every product that comes off the assembly line, then the price for those products is probably going to go up, and that is what we're seeing. We've seen this, I've talked about this with RAM, so prices of RAM has gone up by 50 to 200%. We've talked about this with platter-based hard drive. Enterprise-grade platter-based hard drives are something where like a two-year backlog at this point in time for that particular hardware, and so as platter-based hard drives get more difficult to get their hands on because there's less of it, basically more and more of these companies are going to flash-based storage, and so more of these companies buy flash-based storage. What that means is the price of that storage is going to go up too. SanDisk has reportedly raised its NAND flash contract prices by a staggering 50% for November. This move underscores a rapidly tightening memory market driven by both unrelenting demand, and that's the thing, unrelenting demand. When I talk about Sam Altman and his dumbass $1.4 trillion CapEx expense, I don't think people quite grasp what that means just for hardware. Because again, when we talk about CapEx, that's fixed assets, that's actual product, that's actual widgets. That is a lot of shit to be buying. It's a lot of physical stuff to be buying, right? And so that's what we're talking about with unrelenting demand from AI data centers as well as tightly constrained wafer supply. The report cites market sources who say SanDisk's pricing update sent a shockwave through the storage supply chain, prompting module makers such as Transcend, InnoDisk, and Pacer Technology to pause shipments and reevaluate quotes. Again, so basically, SanDisk is a fab for these chips. So when you buy solid-state drives, right, there are the manufacturers of the drives, but then there's the actual fabs for the NAND chips themselves. And so that's where I would argue whenever you're going to be buying a solid-state drive, what you want to do is you want to buy a solid-state drive from the company that actually produces the NAND chips. So we're talking about Samsung, we're talking about SanDisk, Intel, at least did. They might have sold it off at this point in time. Anyways, when you're going to be buying, you want to buy from the company that actually fabs the chips. Just a good way to go. But there's other drive manufacturers out there, and they simply subcontract out. They simply purchase these NAND chips from other providers. And so that's what they're talking about here is with Transcend and InnoDisk and these other companies. They purchase the memory, the flash from SanDisk, put it into their product, and then they sell it. So basically, at this point in time, those companies are now pausing shipments because they don't really know what to price their product at, right? A profit loss statement, you have to sell for more than you buy for when the prices of the incoming goods are massively in flux. You may not know what that price needs to be. Transcend, in particular, suspending quoting and deliveries starting November 7th, anticipating, quote, continued favorable market conditions. Translation, prices are likely going higher before they settle down. It's the same story we've seen across the chip industry all year. AI workloads are sucking the air out of the room. Fabs are dedicating more lines to cutting-edge memory for GPUs and accelerators, leaving commodity segments like consumer SSDs, embedded modules, and mainstream DDR4 short. The result, a structural shortage that's boosting profits for memory vendors while leaving OEMs and end users scrambling. DigiTimes notes that Transcend expects, quote, upward momentum in the market to persist as companies balance price hikes with limited production capacity. And so this is going to be a big thing, right? For individual people, I mean, it's going to suck. I mean, it is going to suck, right? During the economic kerfuffle, if the price of your laptop or the price of your desktop goes up by 50%, that's going to suck. It is what it is. I think a bigger question here is for the technology decision makers, the folks that need to do a refresh cycle where you're buying 1,000 computers at a time or 10,000 computers at a time, and thinking about what does this actually mean? Do you need to push up your refresh cycle? So again, when we start talking about RAM, the thing is with a lot of these chips, they're put into different computing devices, right? So not just computers and smartphones and that types of things, but routers and switches and that type of deal, right? So if you're sitting there and you're looking at the backbone of your networking infrastructure, so let's say you upgraded to gigabit networking infrastructure, probably about 10 years ago, and the stuff is trucking along fine, right? You bought Cisco or you bought some good company, this stuff is trucking along fine, but people are doing more 4K stuff, you got more AI stuff going on. Maybe, you're thinking about it, you've got some money in the budget, you're thinking about doing a refresh cycle to upgrade everything to, let's say, 10 gigabit per second, right? 10 gigabit per second, and that will last you through the next decade. One of the things to be asking yourself is this period of time, would it behoove you to pull forward the refresh cycle? So you may be thinking like, we want to do the refresh cycle in a year or something. Might it behoove you to pull that refresh cycle forward by a year just to make sure you can actually buy all of the hardware that you want to buy? Right, that's what they're talking about with some of this, right? Some of these manufacturers, literally, again, when you talk about the network equipment manufacturers or the OEMs, when you're buying laptops or desktops or whatever, some of them are only getting 70% of what they order. So they order this amount to be able to sell this amount. They only get 70% of the hardware that they need. And the interesting thing that's going to come up is what happens when it starts to be like staggered 70%. They get like 70% of memory and 70% of GPUs and 70% of CPUs and 70% of motherboards. But not all memory goes into the same motherboards, and not all CPUs go into the same motherboards, and not all GPUs can be used with the same CPUs. And so not only are they only getting 70% of what they order, but then the actual products that they can end up shipping, they may actually get to only be able to ship 60% of the product or 50% of the product within a reasonable amount of time. Right? And so this is something to be kind of considering right now with your whole infrastructure and that type of deal, because it's probably going to get worse, right? This bubble is going to burst, right? The AI bubble is just stupid on the face of it. LLMs are valuable. LLMs are paradigm shifting, but this level of investment is just asininely stupid, right? And so, but the problem is with these bubbles is it can take a long time to pop. Like, everybody can know it's a bubble. Everybody can agree it's a bubble. It doesn't mean it's going to pop tomorrow. Like the moment everybody agrees it's a bubble is not the day it pops. It may be going for another 6 months. It may be going for another year. It might go for another 2 years, right? And so that's one of the things. Like, you might be like, well, Eli, no, I don't want to buy this stuff now because when the AI bubble pops, the price of everything is going to come down. But the AI bubble, it may take a long time to pop. And you're going to be in this situation for a while. So it's kind of one of those things to be thinking about. From a business standpoint, right, if you're a consultant or again, you're a CIO, CTO, the other thing to be thinking about right now is essentially how do you extend out the life expectancy of your equipment, right? We talk about refresh cycles. You go back 20 years ago, 2 to 3 years was a good refresh cycle for things like laptops and that type of deal. If you look at computer devices now, most of this stuff can probably run for a decade. Most of the stuff nowadays honestly doesn't need a refresh cycle. Right, other than from just an ease of workflow, right? If you know a computer, most of the computers are going to be failing in 6 years. It's just easier to get them out of the system before they actually fail, right? But if you don't need to do that, honestly, most computers nowadays, right? You need web browsers, you need your software as a service, you need some other stuff. If it was working fine in 2008, it's probably going to be working fine in 2028. Really, realistically. So one of the things you might be thinking about too is figuring out how to create your internal systems to support longer life expectancies, life cycles for your equipment. Again, that's one of the things you have to be thinking about as a decision maker is basically how you plan things out, right? Do you plan and do you hire and do you resource for migrations or refresh cycles? We know every 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we're going to go through this massive resource cycle or going to go through this refresh cycle. So therefore, this is how we plan for that. Right, there's a difference between planning for massive refresh cycles than planning for just massive amounts of maintenance that needs to be done as equipment gets older and older. And I think those are some of the things to kind of be considering here and thinking about. So what do you think about this? What do you think about SanDisk jacking up their flash prices by 50%? What do you think about this not just affecting if you buy SanDisk drives or whatever, but also that they sell their chips to all of these other drive vendors. So again, it's not simply a computer vendor, computer OEM. They sell to drive OEMs. Those drive OEMs then sell to the computer OEMs. How do you think this is all going to flesh out at the end of the day? Are you starting to hate AI as much as I am? Are you starting to understand why when I talk about AI, it brings the bile up in my throat? Anyways, put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a dumbass. Just be a real Lutnick and give us a strong American comment down there. Do remember what I actually care about is Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. Free to use your hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do in Durham, North Carolina. We have a class coming up next week on AI and web scraping. We have a class coming up after that on extending AI capabilities with REST APIs. We have classes about every 2 weeks in Durham. If you're interested, take a look at silicondojo.com to see what the current schedule is. If you want to support what I'm doing, because remember, free to end user is not free. That's why I shake the brain nips every day. There's a donor box link down below. If you want to throw some money in there, that would be ever so lovely. Well, with that, see y'all later.